back. Season 2, episode 4 of From the Shadow. Today's guest is Alexis Arguello Jr. He's the son of Alexis Arguello Sr., who is a 3-time world champion boxer in 3 different weight divisions. The only guy to ever do that, which is really incredible. We get into that. After his career as a boxer, he ends up moving to Nicaragua. He becomes the mayor of the capital city there, and then has a really controversial death. And we dive kind of deep into that. Alexis really opens up about that in a way that I didn't even expect. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy that and get a lot from it. It's really interesting. He is now a producer for Showtime, producing content for them. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. So here we go. Season 2, episode 4, Alexis Arguello Jr. Have you ever wondered what it would be like growing up if your parents were famous? When the eyes of the world are on you from birth. My name is Chad Bearden, and for the last decade, I've toured the US and Canada playing country music. Along the way, I've made some amazing friends who happen to be famous or are the child of a famous person. Listen as I go backstage, behind the curtain, and talk with them about growing up in the shadow of their parents, the ups and downs of being born into fame, and their journey into making their own name and leaving their own mark on the world. Welcome to From the Shadow. All right, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited about today's guest. I love when we venture into new worlds that I've not done yet. So I'm excited to have the guest that we have today. Mr. Alexis Arguello is here, Junior. I should say. How are you, man?
I'm great. Glad to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. You're in New York?
Yes. I live in Queens. I live out in the Rockaways in Queens, and I've been in New York since '92, but I've been living, out here for probably like 12 years.
That's awesome. I'm trying to, we're trying to schedule some dates in New York right now. So just trying to see how we can make them fit. So when we're up there, you got to come hang out at a show. So,
I'd love to.
So let's go back to the beginning and kind of talk about your dad a little bit, if that's cool, and let everybody kind of know who he was, and then we'll get to the most important thing, which is you and what you're doing now. And so I'm pumped about this. Also, quick shout out. Thanks to my buddy, Brent Stover, for connecting us.
Yes.
So thanks, Brent, for putting this together.
Thanks.
So for anybody who doesn't know, your dad is a boxing legend.
Thank you.
So 3-time world champion. And the thing that like jumped out to me and impressed me, so he never lost a belt in the ring.
That's right.
So,
he never lost any of his titles. And I think that was one of the things that he would always bring up, at least to me, there's a lot of 3-time world champions. There's a lot of champions out there, but I'm different because I've never lost them, So.
Right. So he always relinquished his belt to move up to the next level, right?
Right. Yeah. To move up in weight. He just gave up the title just in order to be able to, challenge himself to go to the next level, I guess. Yeah.
So WBA featherweight title from 74 to 76, WBC super featherweight title from 78 to 80, WBC lightweight title from 81 to 82.
Yep.
That's incredible.
And I think he was the sixth or the 7th man to be 3-time world champion in 3 different weight divisions at that time, because that was, not too many people had done that, so that was pretty amazing. And I
still feel like that's a rare thing. I mean,
yeah, And you know what? Nowadays, it's a lot more common, and now guys have like 7 belts, and things like that. But back then, it was a little different.
Right. And so then after that, your dad got into politics, right?
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, unfortunately,
Uh,
uh,
yeah.
it was something that I think that he always wanted to do,
Right.
and helping the people was a really big thing for him, because that was like always what he wanted to do, is help the Nicaraguan people in any way he could, So yeah, he was really excited when he got into politics.
So after he retired from boxing, he moves back to Nicaragua and became the mayor of the capital city, right?
Yes, yeah, he was vice mayor for a little bit, and then there was I guess another voting for the mayor, and he ended up winning that seat. Yeah.
So when you're growing up, where are you growing up at?
I grew up in Miami, pretty much. Well, I was born in Nicaragua, and I lived there until I was about 6, and then we left Nicaragua just to literally. I think we went to Mexico to go get ready for one of my dad's fights, and the revolution happened in Nicaragua, so we couldn't go back. So we were in Mexico. I think we ended up staying in Mexico for a little bit, maybe like 9 months or something like that, and then we ended up relocating to Miami, and that's pretty much where I grew up. I did all my schooling in Miami and South Florida.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that area. I spent a whole lot of time there. So,
Oh yeah, I
um,
love I love Miami.
so where were the fights taking place?
A lot of the fights were, he fought in Atlantic City a lot. He fought in Vegas. He fought Puerto Rico a couple times. For his second title, he beat Escalera. I think he fought in Puerto Rico for that first fight, and then their second fight was in Italy. But he pretty much fought all over. He fought all over the place. Yeah.
Also, so it's not like as centralized as like now. It seems like all the fights are in Vegas, or
Yeah, yeah,
the
no.
bulk of them.
Back then, I mean, Atlantic City was a big presence. They used to have a lot of fight cards there, and this were the days when boxing was on the major networks. So like every weekend almost. So it was definitely like a busy time for boxing then.
So what is growing up like for you? Like what's the dynamic with you and your dad?
I mean, it was great. I had a great childhood. I definitely can't complain, but it was stressful, here and there. My dad cutting weight and trying to make weight, and that thing like that. Sometimes the household was like you're walking around on eggshells just because things are so tense, especially leading up to a fight. So, but you know what? It was a lot of fun. I got to experience a lot of things, go to a lot of places that I could only dream of. So it was pretty amazing.
So what's it? I'm assuming you went to fights.
Yeah, I did. I used to go to a lot of fights. I mean, depending on if it wasn't during school, like my dad would never let me miss school to go to one of his fights. So it would have to happen in the summer or sometime where I could get time off. But I remember going to a lot of his fights, and I was really young because I was born in 72. So like once he got his third title in 81, I was only like 9, like 9 or 10ish. So,
Right.
I mean, I remember going to the fights, and I remember obviously the knots in my stomach,
Yeah. So what's it like sitting ringside, watching your dad and what other incredible human he's fighting, like these specimens just beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of surreal, you're just hoping everything obviously goes well, and that he's okay, first of all, and that he gets the victory. But it was a lot of tense moments, a lot of nervous energy and nervous butterflies in my stomach, and my job pretty much was, when my dad would come out to the ring, my mom would be in the audience, but once that fight started, she would go back into the dressing room. So my job was pretty much to keep her updated. So in between rounds, I was running back to the dressing room to let her know what was going on,
So
So
you're the newsboy, just
pretty much,
wearing
pretty
it out.
much, yeah.
So, I mean, he obviously like never lost a belt match, but what was it like if he lost a match in general? Was it
You know what? I was really weird because we never really experienced the loss, you
right?
know. He lost most of his fights early on in his career, and I don't really remember ever having that negative experience, you know, after a fight when we're the losing team kind of thing, you know. No, we didn't
Right.
experience that until the prior fight, you know, and then that first prior fight is the one time that I really do remember where, you know, like we were back in the dressing room and you know, it was just emotional, obviously, because you know, everybody was in tears, you know.
Right. So, are you like hanging out at the gym every day as a kid? Like,
You know what? I was I was a gym rat. I was a gym rat. I would go to the gym with my dad a lot and you know, just mess around. Just
yeah,
I would watch him and then after a while I would just lose interest and I would go hit bags or you know, we used to train at this place in Miami called Tropical Park. And there used to be like racquetball courts and like big fields and stuff like that. So I used to just, you know, like wander and go play racquetball and things like that.
like a
Well,
D1 or something now.
yeah, but you know, yeah, I used to go to the gym a lot, and it was a lot
Right.
of fun. You know, it was a lot of fun going there.
Yeah, I think if I were a kid who my dad was like a famous professional, but I'd be like wearing his belt over my thing, like my shoulder to school every day. Just,
Yeah, no, that wasn't the case. That you know what, my dad was he always made it a point for us to, you know, kind of realize that it was they were his belts, you know, and he's the one
yeah,
who did everything. So that's why he like I you know I there were times where you know he realized that I kind of like opened my mouth and said, "Oh, my dad's this person," you know, and he kind of was like, "Listen, you know, I don't think you shouldn't be the one. If I'm not that way, then there's no reason why you should be that way." You know,
that's
because
incredible.
he wasn't that kind of person that would brag a lot, you know, obviously. So when he caught me, you know, caught wind of me doing that, he was like, wait a second, you know, he put a stop to that quickly.
Yeah. So like were your friends always wanting to hang out at your house, meet your dad? You ever feel like,
You know what? It wasn't, I don't think it was necessarily that crazy. I mean, I had a lot of friends, like not a lot of acquaintances, I would say, but not that many friends that I would have come over my house, you know,
right,
like yeah, it wasn't really my house wasn't necessarily the playground to bring everybody over, you know.
gotcha.
But and it was different times because you know, like video games were just coming out. So when playtime for us, we were outside, you know,
Right.
and I was never indoors. We were always just riding our bikes and things like that. So it
We
was
we
it
didn't
was
have a choice when I was a kid. I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. Daylight, you're outside. Don't come back till it's dark.
right.
There was
Yes.
no reason for you to be inside whatsoever. So
Yep. Yeah, so that's how it was with my friends and I. It was just pretty much we're always outside. But you know, they would come over and you know, like talk to my dad. My dad would talk to all my friends, and you know, if they wanted to see the belts, he would show it to them. You know, and he was always pretty obviously cool with everybody and just pretty calm and chill. Really, that he was really a calm and laid back guy.
yeah. So did that dynamic change any after the boxing into the political world? And did you move back to Nicaragua with?
No, what happened was my parents split up like my senior year of high school. And then my dad lived in Miami for a little bit. And then that's it when he ended up going to Nicaragua. And I was pretty much going away to college around that same time. So I left Miami and he went to to Nicaragua, you know. So we were pretty much separated for the all the time that I was in school, you
Right.
know.
And where'd you go to school at?
For my first 2 years, I went to a junior college in upstate New York to Herkimer Community College because I played lacrosse in college.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so that was pretty much like the vehicle that got me to school. You know, like I
Right.
played lacrosse in high school, and if it was honestly, if it wasn't for that sport, I probably would not have gone to college. I wasn't the greatest student, you know, but athletics really just were what motivated me. You know.
Right. That's cool. So where'd you go to after junior college?
After the JUCO, I transferred to Stony Brook out in Long Island, and I got to play some lacrosse out there. So it was pretty good. My goal was to always play D1 lacrosse, and once I was able to do that, I was pretty happy with that.
That's awesome. You got into boxing yourself for a while, right?
I did actually. Yeah, while I was at Stony Brook after my junior year there, I think it was actually I had met my wife, my wife is now, and she, we were having a conversation. She's like, "Would you ever, think about doing it?" And I ended up taking a year off between the junior and senior year, and I went upstate to Canastota, where the Boxing Hall of Fame is, and I lived there, and I fought there in the amateurs for about a year and a half.
So what were the thoughts of your family when that happened?
You know what? Nobody liked it. Obviously, my mom didn't like it. My dad was, that's the last thing he wanted me to do. And I almost turned pro. But he was the one that I talked to that pretty much changed my mind. And he was like, the one thing that he told me that I say this all the time is that he just said to me one thing. He's like, I fought so that you wouldn't have to. I wanted to give you more opportunities than that. So once he said that, I was like, right. It would have pretty much, I guess, wasted everything that he did in a way, So
yeah,
that really hit home. It definitely did.
Man. So you fought 15 bouts, right? And you won 14 by knockout.
I think so. I think it was, I don't know if it was 15, but it was somewhere around in more than 10. I think I'm not sure how many fights I had, but yeah, it was, I only had one fight that went to the decision. So
those are pretty impressive stats to not go pro.
Yeah.
You got like an agent that's going, bro, like,
my manager at the time was like, we got to go pro. And I was like, I hurt my shoulder a little bit, and I needed like 6 months to recoup and take time off. And then by that time I was almost like 27, because I was old already. Like when I started, when I got out of high school, I was 20, because when I got to the States, I didn't really know how to speak English, know? So when I was supposed to be going into third grade here in the States, and when I got here in 79, they put me back in first grade. So wow. I went right back to first grade, and I learned, how to speak English and all that. So I was always the older one, growing up. But yeah, I was already 26, and they wanted to turn me pro. And I was like, you know what? I only had 1 year left of college. And I was like, you know what? I had the conversation with my dad, and I was like, I should just go back. And I went back and graduated.
So you're playing D1 lacrosse and boxing at the same time?
No. I took the time off from school.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, and I was in upstate New York, so yeah.
And then went back and finished it out.
Right? I finished it out, but I lost my last year of eligibility, so I didn't get to play a senior year of lacrosse. So.
Well, now they'll give you like 20 years of eligibility. You can just.
I got to go back and finish it.
You can transfer 26 times if you want to.
Yeah, right.
I saw something. There was like some football player who, like, he's played. This will be like his 6th year at 5 different colleges. Like, oh my God. It's insane.
Odds are, if you watch TV, you've seen plenty of ads for lawyers.
It's usually a lawyer telling you how great they think they are. But at the Verdoliak Law Group, it's different. It's always about the client.
In fact, all of us are actual clients, and we're here to proudly tell you how much the Verdoliak Law Group has done for us.
What impresses me most is how much the Verdoliak Law Group believes in their clients. They only get fees if they win, and they use their own dollars to take cases to trial.
It's that ability to fight for their clients and win at trial that has helped the Verdoliak Law Group recover over $9 billion, and the insurance companies know that.
$9 billion, over 30,000 clients represented, and almost 60 years in business. That's a testament to their strength, knowledge, and success.
In fact, call them with all your legal needs. Like the saying goes, if they've been around that long, they must know what they're doing.
If you're injured in a car or truck accident, any work-related injury, or as a result of a medical error,
call Verdoliak Law Group.
Where it's always about the client.
Injured? Call Verdoliak Law Group.
So what did you get your degrees in?
Well, at Stony Brook, they had this degree. It was multidisciplinary studies, and you just picked pretty much 3 subjects that you could focus on. And mine were Spanish, history, and theater. And that's because, and get this is my thought process, like I had the opportunity to transfer to Marist. They had a pretty good lacrosse program and full scholarship, transfer from the junior college. And I got an offer to go to Stony Brook, but they had a better program. And me being the idiot and the jock that I was, I guess, I went with wanting to be at a better program, and play a better level of lacrosse. Not realizing that Marist had one of the best broadcasting curriculums and programs in the country, so my major had theater in it because that was the only type of production that I could get, at Stony Brook. So I did, like hair and makeup for theater productions. I did, behind the scenes stuff like gaffing and moving sets and pieces around, during some of the performances. So that's what I did,
So are you getting crap from your lacrosse buddies for doing hair and makeup?
Exactly. That's exactly what was happening to me that year. I would, and most of those classes were, like in the evening, like early evening. So, we get after practice, everybody's like relaxing and, just
and you're doing hair and makeup.
And I'm going to the theater class to, get my credits in. And everybody's like, "Oh, have fun with your hair and makeup." It was pretty funny.
I can't think of like a more brutal sport than lacrosse. So you go from that into, "Hi, I'm here to do your hair and makeup for play tonight."
Yeah, it was pretty odd. It was weird, but it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
That's awesome. So, what did you do coming out of college?
So, you know what? I got really lucky because, the summer before I graduated, I got to go to Nicaragua and I hung out with my dad for, maybe like a month and a half. And he had, an office that I would be in, and I would just search his Rolodex. And I literally just took like 15 to 20 cards one day, as I was leaving to bring back to the States. And, thinking that as soon as I graduated, I'll start calling these people to see if I can, get some type of, introduction into the television world. So I got lucky and, I called someone that had worked with my dad prior, and she was working at Classic Sports Television. Her name was Lori Orlando. And, I called her, I got her on the phone, and she's like, "Listen, I literally just got a position open for a boxing PA. It was a production assistant position just dealing with boxing." And I was like, I interviewed with her, and they hired me on the spot pretty much because, they asked me some questions about boxing. And, growing up, I was just, a historian, I would say, in the sport, because I knew a lot of the old fighters, and I always used to watch boxing, with my dad. And we would talk about, some of the old fighters and who he admired, So I knew boxing. And so I was lucky to, get a job. I would say it was like 3 weeks after I graduated, I landed a gig, so I was really, really lucky. And It was just hitting those Rolodex, just trying to see who I could come up and get, some type of connection with.
Right. And we talk about that a lot on this podcast because, I started the podcast with the whole, I was friends with a lot of these guys who, their parents were famous country singers or, things like that. And, everybody just assumes if you grow up with famous parents that things come really easy. And sometimes it does. There's definitely pros and cons.
Yes.
So, I mean, that sounds like that was a pretty awesome pro.
It was a pro. It was just the timing too, It was just luck. It was just such luck, and I was very lucky that she, helped me so much, because she not only gave me this one gig, it's pretty much like she gave me like 3 other gigs after that,
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, Lori Orlando, I owe you my life. She's the best. And but yeah, after I started at Classic Sports Network, they got bought out by ESPN, turned into ESPN Classic.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to go up to Bristol for, like 8 months. And I lived up there, and I lived the ESPN life for a little bit. But then I ended up moving back to the city, and I got a job with Oxygen Media, and I was there for a little bit too. And I got that job through Lori as well. So I was pretty much following her coattails wherever she went.
I would follow her. You tell me where to go, Lori. I will meet you there.
Yeah, but it was amazing. I was very, very fortunate to have her, to have her guidance and all her help throughout those years. Yeah, it was great.
So somewhere in there, your dad passes away as well, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, my dad, I think it was 2009 that he had passed away, and it was crazy because once he got into politics, I knew, that you just never know. In those countries, you just never know what could happen. And I told him, I told him flat out, like when he first told me, and he was excited, he was like, listen, I think I have an opportunity to get into politics. And I was like, listen, that's amazing. That's great. Because my dad had some issues, throughout sometimes in his career, and he needed something positive, in his life to get him back on track. And he saw politics as that,
Right.
to give him something to work for and to help the people. And he was excited, but at the same time, I kind of had to, pump his brakes a little bit. And I told him, listen, this is great. Don't get me wrong, but you have to be really careful. Like in these countries, like you could become president, or you could end up dead one day.
Right.
And I told him that flat out, and he's like, "Oh well," he laughed it off, and he was like, "Oh well, I hope it's not the latter," and he just giggled, and I was like, it's just something that you have to be realistic about, and sure enough, it happened. And
Right.
it was just an unfortunate thing, and it was just under such the circumstances behind it were just so questionable.
Right.
I got the call in the middle of the night from who was his current wife, and she pretty much told me, she like no emotion, like nothing behind it. She was like, "Oh, listen, your dad's dead."
Wow.
And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, what do you mean my dad's dead? Just like that? And she's like, "Yeah, he just died." I'm like, "Oh my God." So I told her, I was like, "Listen, I'm going to get on a flight tomorrow. Don't touch him. Please don't do anything until I get there."
Right.
And sure enough, I flew out the next day. And as I was getting to Managua, I got into a car, turned on the radio, and they were already broadcasting the medical examiner's report, the police report. Everything was already done. So they pretty much, did all the investigation within 24 hours and closed the case. And it was labeled, a suicide. And I just find that, so hard to believe and so hard to accept, because I no one really believes that was, what occurred. So, and what, since it happened, I haven't returned to Nicaragua because, since I stepped foot on the day that I arrived, like I was I wasn't wanted there. And we all knew that, because we were there to ask questions. We were there to ask what happened, and no one could give us any answers, and we were pretty much ushered from place to place. We were under constant vigilance. We got put into like a hotel that was run by the government. I'm sure our rooms were bugged,
Right.
but I had no problems, like letting them know that this was, kind of messed up. And, there was a situation where during my dad's wake, there was, like thousands of people at this cathedral, and they had draped his casket with the FSLN flag, which is the Sandinista party's flag. And I told them to take it off because, like I didn't want that to be their, like just another show propaganda,
Right.
So I made them put the Nicaraguan flag on there, and everybody's faces were like, whoa, like
Right.
he's questioning, or he's making us do this. And I changed it, we made them change it. And, like I got back to my hotel that day, and I got a call and the travel agent says, "Oh, you're leaving tomorrow." And I'm like, "What? I'm supposed to be here another 4 days." They're like, "Nah, you're going to leave tomorrow." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm not leaving here tomorrow." So I ended up staying an extra 4 days, and tried having meetings with people just to see if, the police could tell us anything, and no one would talk to us. So it was just crazy. And then for the funeral, it it was crazy because I would say, like 500,000 people had to have shown up.
Wow.
And it really got to the point, and they didn't give us any security. So it was just us, the family, with my dad's hearse, and we were in a bus behind it. But then once we got to the cemetery, it was a free for all, So
Right.
there was like hundreds of people pushing us almost into my dad's coffin, like as he was being lowered in. So it was just you could tell, that it was just like trying to make us as uncomfortable as possible.
Right. And just make a spectacle out of it.
Oh yeah, totally. So it was crazy. But yeah, like they knew that from the minute we got there that we were not happy, and that that we will never ever believe, that happened.
Right.
That the story that they put out there is true.
Right.
And we'll never get the answers because no one will ever talk there. But I've been trying for maybe like 5 years, obviously I work in television. So like the one thing for me to do is kind of do a doc about it.
Right.
And, so it's been slow in moving, but, I have a sizzler out. I have a trailer that we've been shopping around, and hopefully, it'll get picked up one day. So we'll see if we do it soon. Hopefully, but I mean, if the story's out there, the story is known that, there's a lot of questions that weren't answered. And
I've got a guy I want to introduce you to. We'll talk after this, but
okay.
I think it would be really cool. So you come back to the US. How do you do things after that?
Well, then in regards to like just dealing with everything that went down in Nicaragua, or
and just like, how does that, does that motivate you professionally? How does that affect you professionally?
I mean, it motivates me. It motivated me just to be a better person, and just I guess not forget what happened to my dad, and I'll never forget that. But just try to. My goal is just to raise more awareness as to what happened, and let people know what really occurred. Because there's still people out there that question it, that think that it happened. But if I had the chance to do a doc about it, and just raise more awareness, and have people ask more questions about it, and put a little more heat on that government, then that's all I care about.
You think they'll let you go there and shoot?
That's the one thing I would love to. Like I'm ready to go down there and knock on everybody's door. And
Right.
I know what we're going to be filming. We're going to be filming a lot of doors being slammed on our faces, but
Right.
you know what? That just shows their guilt. So if no one's willing to talk to me, then right then and there, you're giving it away that
You're only running if you got something to hide.
You're hiding something, So yeah, it was a lot of shitty things, and like one of the. I think he was like the Secretary of State, sat me down in this office in this hotel where I was staying at. And he's like, "I just want you to know that we're keeping all your dad's things. You're not going to leave here with anything.
What?
You can't take any of his titles. You can't take any of his trophies. We're keeping it all because we're making we're going to start a foundation, and we're going to start a Hall of Fame based around your dad. So we're going to keep all his things, and we're going to make sure that it's all here in Nicaragua." And I'm sitting there just laughing in this guy's face, like, how dare you, like, who the hell are you?
Right.
And they pretty much ended up doing that. We went to my dad's house, and his wife was there. And she told us to show up at a certain time. We showed up there at a certain time, and she made us wait outside the gates for 2 hours for some officials to show up, because she wanted someone to mediate, so we're not going in there and ransacking the place, I guess, and taking everything.
Right.
So we finally get into the house. And this was, like I said, a couple hours after we arrived. And she leads us into, we're thinking that we're going to at least be able to get something, of our dads, or,
Right.
so we each can have something. And I was there with my siblings, we were all there together. And she leads us into my dad's closet. And my dad, he loved to dress up. He loved his suits, and he had hundreds, if not thousands of them,
Right.
but and his shoes. So she leads us to his closet, and she's like, she opens up the door and she's like, all right, go ahead, take whatever you want. And she offered us just his clothes, like take his suits, take his shirts, take whatever. And that's
Wow.
all you get. So, like my brothers, like one of my brothers started picking clothes out. I'm like, no. I was like, don't touch anything. I was like, this is ridiculous. This is a disgrace. How dare you offer us this? Like it was just a slap in the face. So we all just left and told her, this is just it just shows the kind of person you are. And, God will punish you one day. That was the last thing I said to her. And,
is there a way to litigate that there? What's the system like that?
There's no system there, especially against the government.
Right.
She works with the government, and, so it's just, I'd go there and it would just be a waste of my time, because they would side with her.
Right.
And it's, I've tried to, I've reached out to lawyers here in the States to try to see what I could do as far as, opening up cases out there, and, having that case reopened, and it just doesn't seem, no one seems to think that I can get anything done over there.
Right.
It's just the level of corruption, I would say, I guess, in that area of the world, especially in Nicaragua. I'm not saying everything is bad, but that political party is just not. There's nothing, that's straight and legit about that. So
Right. So you end up going to work for CBS, right?
yes,
As
yeah,
a
I ended
producer?
up at CBS. Yeah, I worked at CBS from 03 to just this past January. And I was there for a long time. And, I produced the features, and I did original programming, like half-hour to hour shows. And I would travel, to various colleges and universities throughout the country, and do pieces on athletes and coaches, So I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of traveling, a lot of small towns, a lot of good college towns. It's a great experience.
So what does a producer do in that?
So in that aspect, my boss would just give me, or we'd pitch our stories, and want to do a story on a player or a coach, and we do the research, and come up with the questions, trying to visualize how you want to tell the story. And then we go out there. Well, we call the school first and schedule a day where we can come out and, interview the coach and a player. And then we go out, do the interviews, we shoot scenics at campus and shoot practice of the athlete and things like that. And then as a producer, I'd come back and I'd put that all together into a 3 to 4 minute piece, just trying to tell their story the best way I could. And
So you're the guy that decides what the final thing is going to look like.
yes, pretty much. You decide all the music, you decide all the sound bites that go in, you decide on all the B-roll that you use to cover, all the sound bites that you're using. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, you get to build something, and try to tell somebody's story and be respectful, whether, most of the stories that I worked on were all positive anyway, so it was never anything negative, but so it's a lot of fun. You get to be creative, and I love being out on the field, and I shoot myself too. I do a lot of shooting video wise, so that's a lot of fun, getting behind the camera and doing that. So that's the one thing about CBS, is that they gave me the opportunity to do a lot of things, just go out there and shoot if I wanted, or just produce, so it was a great learning experience being there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are you doing now? What are you doing these days?
But now I'm working on boxing. In January I moved over to Showtime Sports, and it's crazy how it worked out, because I was at CBS, and my boss, Emily Deutsch, who's a great boss. I love her. And she's like, oh, I got a call from someone over at Showtime, and David Dinkins Jr. And he was wondering if you'd be interested in working in boxing, if you ever want to try it. And at CBS, I used to get the opportunity to do some boxing, but not a lot. And I was like, yeah, of course, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what I could do. And so like 6 months came and went, and nothing. I didn't hear anything back from Showtime. But then I think this past October, Canelo was fighting Caleb Plant, and they were doing an all access show. So I got the opportunity to kind of try that as my first shoot for Showtime. They kind of put me on loan from CBS to Showtime for the month. And I did, the Canelo camp. We shot with Canelo for the 3 weeks leading up to, his fight with Caleb Plant. And, I think that they pretty much liked what I was able to, to bring to the table and what we got from that shoot. So, I was lucky enough that they offered me a gig. So it was pretty exciting. It was great.
That's awesome. Everything kind of comes full circle.
Definitely. It was so weird, it's so weird. And then to actually be, like working and be a part of boxing is like, it's just amazing. It's so cool being like back in the gym,
Right.
And just like, because I grew up in the gym, like I told you,
Yeah.
So it's just second nature to me, so it was something that I couldn't pass up,
Yeah, for sure. So do you see this being what you do for the rest of your career?
I think so. So. Yeah. It just feels, I'm just comfortable,
Right.
Like I know, I think I know fighters,
Right.
and they're very, they're up and down, very moody, and you got to know how to read them, kind of thing. So
Yeah, there's probably not a better person to navigate that.
Right. So yeah, I think I not to sound like to brag in any way, because that's not me, but
Right.
I think I bring something to the table where, most people wouldn't be able to, because
Right.
boxing has been my life for forever,
Right.
And I know the sport really well. And, so it's just, it's home,
Right.
That's all that's it pretty much.
Yeah. So do you think you'll ever get back in the ring for anything?
Maybe
Maybe a charity fight or something?
That's how I started with my amateur careers, with a charity event. When I was playing lacrosse at the junior college, they had like a charity boxing night, and my buddies were like, you should do it. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. But what's funny is that I just started working out again. I bought a heavy bag, and I just been hitting the heavy bag, and it feels good to get, to throw the punches around. But man, I'm sore. I haven't been this sore in a long time. But no, I don't know if I'd ever get in the ring. It's I'd love to spar with somebody. That would be cool. But I don't know about getting in there with in any like sanctioned manner,
Right. I had a buddy who he was all about like the what's the the big gym, like the chain boxing gym or whatever, like title boxing or whatever it's called. Yeah. He was like, hey man, you got to go. It's like the best. I'm like, I went like twice. I'm like, I feel like my hands are going to fall off. Like, how do you do this? Like, obviously I don't know what I'm doing. I did not grow up boxing, but I'm like, working out is never fun, but this is the least fun I've ever had working out. So
it's tough. Those 3 minutes, they last a long time. It feels like forever, but it's one of the best workouts overall, for your body. and for your mind too. You get that aggression out, and it helps. It's soothing.
Yeah. So before I did the country music thing, I was a cop for a long time, but I remember the first day of police academy, like they sat up a bag and they were like, all right, you got to go as hard as you can on this bag for 60 seconds. And like 20 seconds in, you're dying.
Yeah,
Like, this is the longest 60 seconds of my life.
yeah,
And they did that to show you, like, these fights are going to feel like they last forever. And backup is coming from a long way away a lot of times. Like, just in 60 seconds, a lot can happen.
yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy like that, how quickly that passes. So I can't imagine you guys who like put in hours and months training for this stuff.
Yeah, it's tough. Like why I used to I watch my dad, and I used to be in awe of him, and just the way it was just such a sacrifice, because
Right.
it was a funny thing in our house is that he used to always complain that, he grew up hungry and now he has money and he still can't eat, because he's got to lose weight. So that was always funny that he'd always mention, around the dinner table, everybody would be eating and he would be like watching everybody just like, I hope you guys are having a good meal,
Yeah, that's tough.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. The whole boxing lifestyle, especially if you become a champion early, and
Right.
you feel and see this much success at an early age, it must be tough to be able to handle that. You have money and you can do whatever you want, and it's got to be tough to be able. You got to be a tough person to be able to, keep yourself grounded and not let that, get the best of you.
And how do you maintain that, like, mentally, when you have so much success so early, like the discipline of being able to sustain that success is incredible.
Yeah, that's like the famous saying of Marvin Hagler. He said, it's really hard waking up and doing road work when you're waking up in, silk pajamas, I don't know if that's necessarily the exact quote, but it's tough, that once you get that success and you have, the riches at your fingertips, you still got to have that motivation to get up and do the same things you were doing to get you there, to maintain. The hardest thing that I ask this question a lot when I do the interviews now, with these boxers is, what's harder? Is it harder to get there or is it harder to maintain?
Right.
Because once you get there, you have all these distractions and all these people pulling at you and everybody wanting something from you, so you got to be able to say no to people. You got to be able to, just
absolutely
maintain everything and be responsible. And I'm sure, especially with these young kids, it's tough, it's
the distractions of the world today is just, and everything is so accessible.
Right.
So I mean, I deal with that with my kids with social media all the time. Like, I couldn't imagine if we had this when I was growing up. I would have been in so much trouble.
I know.
And every stupid thing I did as a kid would have lived forever.
Oh yeah, that's all of us. Yeah. My daughter, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she's on social media and all that. So yeah, it's scary.
It is.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, if people want to find you, want to see what you're doing, how do they find you?
Well, I'm not really on like Instagram or anything. I've been talking to my wife Michelle, and it's like, should I get on Instagram? I'm like, maybe I should, just to start posting stuff more, with my
just a fan page.
Yeah, just to do that. So I might jump on that, but I'm just watch our stuff on Showtime. Really, watch the all access shows that we have. We have the Tank Davis and Rolly Romero fight happening this weekend, so that's going to be a good show. And we've got a lot of cards lined up for the summer, and it should be fun. I'm excited.
That's
a lot
awesome.
of boxing, so it's great.
I've never seen a fight in person, so I want to see my first fight with you, so you could tell me what's going on.
That would be great. That would be great. Oh
Yeah.
man, it's exciting. Let me tell you, there's nothing like being in a boxing match. I mean, it's the energy, just at least for me, because I know I
Right.
still get those same butterflies, like if my dad was fighting, but not on that level. But I still, it just gets
You appreciate it in a different way. Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm the same way. If I go to a concert, like my wife, like you will go to a concert and she's all, she's dancing, she's living her best life. And I'm watching what they're doing, like I'm more concerned with all the technical things that are going on.
Right.
And she's like, why aren't you having fun? I'm like, I'm having a blast. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I'm also like, I view this much differently than you do. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Like you go do your thing. Like I dance your heart out.
Right. No,
but it's cool to experience those things. Like experiencing a fight with you would be awesome because seeing how you appreciate it in a different way. Like I love that kind of stuff. So
yeah, you know what? Now that I'm there and I'm able to get to a fight and be working it too, it's kind of it's surreal. Like I catch myself like, is this really happening? Like for this last All Access show that I worked on for the Spence Ugas, I was with the Ugas camp, and we follow these guys for pretty much 3 weeks, and then for fight week, we're with them at the weigh-ins, we're doing all the behind the scenes stuff. And for the fight, I was actually sitting right behind their corner, within the corral, so I had like better seats than like Nas and whoever else was there. And I was just looking over and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I'm sitting here right now. Like I was just sometimes I just pinch myself, because I'm extremely blessed and lucky to be where I am and to, be able to be working in boxing again. It's amazing.
What an incredible thing.
It's crazy. Like when I first started, we just went back to the office, a couple weeks ago, and like the first couple of things that I was doing in the office, just watching fights, just doing research on one of the fighters, and I just caught myself just like I can't believe I don't know if I said this, but I was like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to watch boxing now. Like it's crazy because it's something that I love, and it's a perfect fit.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I have loved, getting to hear your story and growing up. And I think people are going to love this episode. So, thank you so much for doing it.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks to Brent for hooking us up.
Yeah, for sure. And, I can't wait to, see this documentary when that happens. So, it's going to be so much fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, the social media lists.
I'm on Facebook. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I'm on.
Oh, okay. Well, Facebook's okay. So just find you on Facebook.
Yes, that's it. Facebook. And I will be on Instagram soon. I definitely will be. I just got to set up an account.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. Hopefully we get to do another one of these when the documentary comes out. So
yeah, no way. Thank you, Chad. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad we were able to do it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to From the Shadow podcast. New podcasts are released every Tuesday. If you enjoyed this show, please share it with at least one friend and tag us on Instagram at From the Shadow Podcast. Also, it would help us tremendously if you would rate the podcast on Apple Music and Spotify. From the Shadow with Chad Bearden.